boys and girls, students of Buddhist Sunday school, parents and grandparents, and teachers of Buddhist Sunday school and Dhamma classes. May you all be well, happy, and peaceful. We are going to have a presentation of a very important story titled Bad Habits, a story with a moral. Now, this short story teaches some very important Dhamma lessons or life lessons that will help us to be more happy, peaceful, and successful in life. Now, the presentation has the text in English and Malay, but the narration with the explanation is in English. At the end of the story, we have a discussion on the important lessons that we can learn, or you can say the Dhamma teachings. So this is the lesson for today. Now, as usual, we will have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go over the story, each slide, and explain each of the slides. So now let us launch the PowerPoint slideshow. We are going to start from the beginning. You can see the cover slide, Bad Habits, a story with a moral, tabiat buruk, kisah yang bermoral. Now, so you can see the two animated images involving bad habits. You see what the monkey does, and the other one like a monster child, all right, crying and screaming. Now, let us now go on to the start of the story. Before that, let me take off the video. So now let us go on to the second slide. Once upon a time, there lived a rich man in a village. He had a young son who was addicted to some bad habits. Now here you have some pictures or images to make the presentation more interesting and to help you to understand better. So there was this kampung rich man, and he had a young son, probably maybe, primary 5 or 6, or primary 4. And the son had some very bad habits, and he was sort of addicted, right? Controlled by the bad habits. Now, bad habits include many. For example, hot-tempered, always wanting to play endlessly, right? Not wanting to do the work and so on. A lot of these bad habits, So one day, the rich man took his son to a monk and asked the monk to help his son change his bad habits. Now, of course, you have very cultivated monks with great wisdom who can give very good advice and counseling. So this was the monk the rich man went to see, bringing with him the young son. That's the boy, just a young boy, primary school. Then the monk said, okay, I will try to make him change his ways, the bad habits. So then the monk asked the son, the rich man's son, to take a walk with him through the garden. Now this rich man, being very rich, had a very, very large garden. Maybe you could say something like a park already. Very, very large garden. So this monk asked this young boy to have a walk with him through the whole garden, through the garden. So I put in some images to help you to picture the story better. Now let us go on to slide number 3. So they started walking. After taking some steps, that means not long later, just a few minutes, then the monk stopped. And in the garden, of course, you expect to see many types of plants, bushes, plants. Some are small, some are large. And then you have also all types of shrubs and bushes and also trees, right? Various types of trees because it was a very huge park, you see. So after taking some steps, the monk stopped. And of course, the boy also stopped. Otherwise, he'll be, jumping here and there, hyperactive type lah. And there were some plants around the people around the monk. And then the monk asked the boy to pluck a small plant out of the ground. He pointed out that small plant in the garden or park and asked him to pluck out that plant. And the boy so did as the monk said. So the boy went to grab the plant with his fingers only because it was a very small plant, very small plant. Maybe it could be a flowering plant, right? And so the boy grabbed the plant with his fingers. Very easily, he could pluck it out already, right? Could pluck it out. As you could see the animation here, a very small plant. So this boy could easily just pick out or pluck out. So the monk just nodded, right? Said, very good. Perhaps or he didn't speak that much, right? So after that, they resumed the walking, continue walking in the big garden. So I think it's quite easy to understand, isn't it? So now, of course, you could see that the monk, being very cultivated with wisdom, commanded good respect. So the boys also followed. So he could respect this monk. Otherwise, there are some naughty boys, they will not listen to instructions, right? They have the bad habits of ignoring instructions. But this monk was a very cultivated monk. So the boy had respect for him and followed what he said. So now let us go on to slide number 4 now. Slide number 4. After a few minutes, just now I said they continue walking, isn't it? So after a few minutes, they stop again. They stop again. And then this time, the monk pointed towards another plant, a bit larger than the last plant. The various types of plants of different sizes. So this time, the plant was a bit larger. Then the boy was told by the monk. The monk told the boy, now boy, can you pluck out that plant? He pointed to that plant. So the boy, very happily went towards the plant and grabbed the plant with his hand. You could see the picture here. And pluck out of the plant with a bit of effort. It was not so easy now compared to the first plant that was just a very, very small plant just growing only, right? Whereas this one was larger already, the plant. It could be a flowering plant also. And he had to put in some effort, some strength. Right? So then after that, he told the monk, it is done, sir. The boy said to the monk, no problem for me. So he was like very proud that he could do the task with a little bit of effort only. So then the monk probably might say that, very good, come, let's continue walking. So this is slide number 4. Now let us go on to slide number 5. So they continued walking, and after going some distance, right, in the Bay Garden or park, you could say, right, the monk stopped again, and this time he asked the boy to uproot a bush. You know what a bush is, lah. This bush, of course, is larger than the two plants that the boy had plucked before, just now. See, so it was a bush. Now I think you have seen various types of bushes. Some bushes are quite big, and then some are smaller bushes. Right. But this time now, the task was more challenging already. Not easy to pluck out the bush, So then the boy, so he went towards the bush that the monk pointed at. Right? So the boy grabbed the bush with both his hands, Wow! And using all of his strength, it was very difficult. He barely managed to pluck it out. Maybe it was a really big task. He nearly gave up, maybe you could say. So he pulled and pulled. And then somehow or other, he managed to pluck that bush out of the ground. Now you could see here just a picture to help you to understand the bush. The bush will be more difficult to pluck out. I think you have experienced this, that if you go in the nature walk and you can see all sorts of plants, greenery. You can walk in the park or in the small forest, and there are some, just like the lalang and so on, are easy to pluck, right? Or even some grass, But then there are plants, with the roots, quite deep inside the soil, quite difficult to to pluck out, right? To pluck out. And also you could see various types of bushes, isn't it? Some bushes, smaller ones, you can still push out, pluck out, not push out, pluck out. But some, wow, they had already grown their roots into the soil. So the bushes would grip the soil very tightly, and it will become a more difficult task, isn't it? More difficult task. So now, this was the stage already. It was quite a task for the young boy to pluck out that bush. But he managed it after having tried very hard and putting in all his strength, and he was tired already, maybe sweating on the forehead already, and he was panting away, which means out of breath, right? So it was a big task already, but he managed it. So he showed the monk. The monk said, "Oh, very good. Okay, now let's walk further." So let us now go on to slide number 6 now. Now, so after having walked for some time, they came upon some trees now. So there was this tree, not very large tree yet, but it was a tree already. A small tree, you could say. So then, you know what the monk told the small boy? He said, "Boy, now you try to pluck that one out." That one, pointed at that, probably a fruit tree. There are even, let's say, some, let's say, example, papaya tree. So it's not very, very tall, and there might be even some fruits there already. So some fruit trees, right? Example, I give you the example, papaya. Or maybe some other fruit trees, not that big yet, but it was already a tree. And the monk asked the boy, "Now go and pluck that tree out." So what the boy did was, the boy went, I could see here, right? And then could see some fruits there also. So he went and then he grabbed the trunk of the tree with both hands, right? And then tried to pull out to pull out as hard as he could. He was thinking of taking the trunk of the tree out of the soil, It's not easy, isn't it? And then you know of how people chop down trees. They have to use maybe saw or axe, right? And then to uproot, to take the roots out, even they would have to dig and so on. That's a very big task, especially if the tree is a very old, large tree like a mango tree, you probably got to get some workers and so on to help to clear or to cut down the tree, including the roots, otherwise they might grow again. So he tried already and he knew that it was not possible. He could not even move the tree a little. The tree remained sturdy, unshakable, just as it was. Couldn't move even a little bit. So he gave up. Then after that, he was so tired already. You could see the picture here, right? He was so tired already. He said, "It is impossible, master. I can't do it. I can't do it. This tree, a small tree, is already rooted into the ground already lah. I cannot do it." So the monk said, now my boy, come. Right? He was very kind and compassionate. So then that's where the monk would teach the boy very important life lessons that pertain to habits. Because what was the objective? The objective was to get rid of the bad habits, or to eradicate or to stop those bad habits. And I think you know various types of bad habits. Some of them are physical. Like, there are some young children, they have all these funny habits of bodily movements, not due to any medical disease, right? Like some girls, like to always, blink their eyes, or they call it juling, turn their eyes on one side, juling, that's it. And then also some very, very funny movements of certain parts of the body, either the hands or even the mouth. They like to put out their tongue for a while and then put them in all sorts of funny bodily movements unnecessarily, right? Very awkward, very funny. I've seen that. And then also there are some in the class, they like to play with the pencil, and then they will tap the pencils on the desk. Very, very distracting, that sort of thing. Or some would like to, twirl the pencils in their hands. Very distracting. These are all bad habits. Not so serious, really, but still, you find these unnecessary bodily movements. I have one teacher, even so old already, who had this very funny habit. He would shrug his shoulders. After speaking to you for some time, he will move his shoulders up and down, up and down. And then I found out that actually he already had this for a long time since he was young. It was not due to any medical condition. It was just a bad habit. A bad habit. So then the boy gave up already. So what would happen now? So now let us go on to slide number 7 already, right? Now number 7. Here, of course, you can see the pictures here. So I try to get closest to it. Of course, these are just pictures, just to give you an idea. So if even the face of the boy would change already, because it's difficult to get the same face, and you need probably an expert to do all the graphics on the own, and then it will take a lot of hours. So I just make it easy to get you some images easier to understand. So now that's where the monk started to give the lessons, the life lessons. So the monk said, you see, my boy, it doesn't mean that he's his son, That's a very affectionate way of saying, my boy, my little boy, it's not the son. A monk doesn't have any family or, of course, children. They have renounced already to lead the holy life. But anyway, it's just a very affectionate way of talking to a boy. So you see, my boy, the Malay translation is kamu lihat anakku. It's not really the anak, as you know. This boy was the son of the rich man in the village, isn't it? So you see, my boy, it is the same with our habits. If we let them grow and take root, it becomes harder and harder for us to get rid of them. So it was a very, very good way of telling a very important message, right? Because the boy, was quite smart. You see, progressively you could see, younger plants, small plants, very easy to pluck out. Then after that, bigger, a bit more difficult already. And then the bushes even more difficult until you reach the tree, the time you could not remove them, you see. So now the monk tells about habits. He said we all learn all these sort of habits. Good habits, okay, right? Good habits, like for example, you have the habit of always being very punctual. You have the habit of always helping people who are in trouble. Those are good habits. But now we are talking about bad habits. Like, being very lazy, not waking up on time for school, and so on. I think you know what all this, or using bad language. That's a terrible bad habit, isn't it? Foul language, bad words. I've encountered this with my Form 5 students when I was in one of the schools. Early morning, they would shout all the bad words in Cantonese. So these are actually bad habits that they might have picked up since the time they were children, and nobody corrected them. So they have, just like the small tree with the roots ingrained already, very strongly binded to the ground already. So these habits with them already like automatic already, no, terrible. So I had to teach them and explain them, and then I see some of them still could change, but it was difficult already once you have been having that bad habit for a long time. So that's why the monk explained. So you see these habits, so bad habits, if you let them grow, that means you have, always been practicing or doing these sort of bad habits. So just like the plants, they grow and then they take root, So more and more difficult, harder for us to get rid of them, just as you have seen, right? Compare the young plants to the tree until we could not move already. And these bad habits start with you, and you will suffer on account of the bad habits. Let's say that particular young student has the bad habit of always coming late for any function or project or whatever, late for class and so on. So he has this habit and not corrected, and then later on when he becomes older, same thing. And the worst thing is next time when he becomes an adult and works in the company and he is again always late, in time to come he might even get sacked. Another thing about these bad habits, so if you are let's say a young student, primary school, and you have the bad habits of always wanting to disturb other people, right? To say some, words which are not good, rough words or even bad words, You have that bad habit, You call people, hey, you monkey, or something like that. So it's already a habit with you. You can call and then you tell a girl, your classmate, at school, hey, you monkey. Oh, imagine, how would people take it? Surely they wouldn't be happy, isn't it? And you, because of habit already, you just like automatic, you just say out already like that anytime. Right? Because nobody corrected you and you did not change. So what will happen? Other people will have a dislike of you, isn't it? People would not lie, right? Boys, girls, or even adults, same thing. People would not like you because of your bad habits. That you always, sarcastic, say bad words, insulting people, ridiculing people, right? Or worse still, some have the habits of telling lies. Just as the story, remember the boy who cried wolf. So definitely a lot of bad effects coming to you on account of your bad habits. Then your character is tarnished. Tarnished or blackened already, spoiled already with the flaws. Not clean character already. People start talking already. This person, always lying one. This person has the habit of disturbing others. This person has the habit of damaging, property. All sorts of bad habits are endless. So what happens? Your character already spoiled already. So you see how dangerous it is? And this will go on into your adult life. And then worse still, some have the bad habits that involve immorality, unwholesome actions. For example, some have the bad habit of stealing from the supermarket. They will just, these small boys, they have not been taught, and then they pick out the habit, and then nobody really try to change his terrible ways. You take small things, maybe a small item of a few sweets or one of the fruits, small fruit, and put in the pocket. All these bad habits are terrible. So in time to come, your character will be spoiled, tarnished, blackened, you can say. So therefore, it is so important. The monk explained, therefore, any bad habit should be uprooted before it spreads its roots into you. So the boy could understand very clearly because he had the experience of pulling out plants and bushes. And then when he reached the tree, he couldn't pluck out the tree already. He couldn't pull it out. So now, he could relate to bad habits already. So it was a very, very important lesson. Not beating the flirt or scolding the person, but making him see, making him understand the dangers and so on. That's the way we should teach, not using the cane. Oh, every time caning the flirt, shouting at the flirt. No, we explain everything very nicely. So, compassion, all right? So the person would understand and he could change. It may take some time, but then that is the best way. Here, of course, I put there, stop bad habits. Stop bad habits. So you could see a very important, simple, short story, but the message is fantastic, isn't it? Right? The life lessons of not having the habits, bad habits, and carrying on year after year. And even when you have grown up, you find that the habits still with you. That's why you have even some adults shouting all the dirty words and all the bad words. And in public, you scold a friend, I cannot use all those. I am not used to. I don't have this bad habit of using four-letter words or in the with people and so on. But I've seen that, and you see movies, movies, like all sorts of movies like from Hollywood and so on. They will use four-letter words so commonly, and some right pick them out. And I've seen some of my students also learn from these movies and then get stuck with the bad habits and always using four-letter words when they feel irritated or angry with something. And that is not a good thing, isn't it? Because in a culture like ours, right, we should not use, in fact, all should not use. That is actually wrong speech. All right, in the Buddha's teachings, you have one of the Noble Eightfold Paths factors, right speech. So right speech opposite will be wrong speech. And when you use wrong speech, you are actually having unwholesome karma. And what are the things that constitute wrong speech? Now, lying. Lying, you find is terrible, isn't it? And then this can become a habit among young people. Always try to bluff or lie, and the parents don't correct and don't teach. So always lying, Then they later on become when they become adults, they will lie and they even cheat already. Then you have talking bad about other people. Some have the habits, whenever they meet their friends, they like to go and talk bad about other people. That's also terrible, and it is unwholesome speech. And the third one is using rough words and bad words. Make people feel very uneasy or hurting the feelings of other people, isn't it? Suppose people scold you using all the dirty words. Of course, you won't feel good, isn't it? And that person actually is committing some bad karma. So you see how dangerous can be bad habits from young. And then the fourth one is gossiping, idle talk. Some like to gossip, endlessly, whenever they meet their friends, instead of talking on constructive things, maybe sharing knowledge or discussing Dhamma, the best, right? They will like to gossip, talk all those nonsense. This person having three girlfriends, this man got how many wives, and then this and that, all those gossiping, that becomes a habit, right? So people now know you as one person with a bad character already. So therefore, these bad habits must be corrected, especially from young. It's not that you cannot be corrected when you are older, but very difficult. The older you become, right, then the more difficult to remove. That's why you see some old people, because of the bad habits from young, so they still continue. You can see old men, old ladies are using all the four-letter language also, isn't it? All these are habits. So now let us go on to number 8 now, the slide number 8, yes, right? So slide number 8, the story is finished already. So now this one I got the story from the internet. So the one who wrote the story also gave some comments. I did some editing and some changes, and I find there are very good points. So that's why I put these last 2 or 3 slides, some comments to reflect on, right? Based on the story. So let us, I'll read it and then explain to you. You say, if we look into our lives, that is to reflect. We must always think back, and we must think back and reflect, isn't it, about our life. What have we done? What have we not done? All right. And what should we do? What should we avoid? All those things wise people do. They reflect. So they always improve, isn't it? So you say, if we look into our lives, then, but many people don't. And the habits just sing it without them thinking out clearly. They probably would need some advisors or teachers or parents or grandparents to tell them and explain to them. And I find that I've encountered so many students with bad habits. Even up to Form 6, I could see there are some like this, always passing up assignment late, coming to class late, all sorts of things. Actually, all these bad habits are rooted there ever since they were young and not corrected. And then some have, this bodily language, very, distracting, as I have told you. I had one student who was a head prefect in the school. So in my guidance class, come the beginner. So, he would use up his pens, he would take up his pencil, twirl the pencil in his fingers, tap the pencils on the desk. So it makes a irritating, very disturbing sound, isn't it? Talk, 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 talk. So I told him already, then he would say, sorry, teacher, all this. But because the habit started when he was very young, probably in standard 1, now upper 6 already, 19 years old. So it was very difficult to change. So I explained to him everything, and he said he would try very hard. So you see, so if we look into our lives, then we will find that many times in our life, we let a bad habit take root, to sink into our minds, sink into our heart. We let that bad habit take root in our life and become like a small tree, really. The analogy is plucking out that plant on the small tree. So I have given you very concrete example. Then I had also students who will always be late. So I was quite particular because very disturbing for the other students. So they come for the guidance class, lessons already started for 5 or 10 minutes. They would knock at the door and then say, good morning, sir, and so on. And then the lesson is disrupted. So I have explained to them, I say, you must try to be punctual. And it is wrong to be, stealing people's time, distracting other people. And of course, when I say this, I myself make sure that I have to be punctual also, right? And then I say, but sometimes you can't help it. I give them example. For example, if it is your grandfather's birthday and your grandfather wants you to sit with him for maybe half an hour. So, if you don't please your grandfather, he'll be angry. So you do that and you come to class late, is okay lah. Huh? But they know what I'm trying to do. They are quite smart plus they know what I'm trying to drive at. Right? That is just a bad habit. If you have a valid reason, then no problem, isn't it? If you cycle to the center for the guidance class, and then your bicycle puncture, once a while you were late, it's all right. But most of the time it's due to bad habits. And these people grew up as we also had adult members, even committee members of the association, very often will come late just because of a bad habit, right? You don't take the trouble to be punctual. And then you waste other people's time. Sometimes people have to wait for you. And then you see, it's not that they don't know. No. Sometimes we know that we are doing something wrong, but we still keep on doing that day after day. After I will give you many examples, you see. You are smart people. We can think, this is not good habit. Always late. So embarrassing. Because other people looking and they are not happy because we are disrupting the class. No, but yet they keep on doing it. Isn't it? After you have more examples, you see. So this bad habit can be something like spending too much time on social media. Now this is a very important thing. This picture, of course, I don't let you see the actual person. That we let the habit take root in our life. Then later on, you regret because you've done something unwholesome already. Right? Maybe you have lied, and then because you have lied already, other people suffer. Then it comes a time where you feel regret, remorse, guilty, right? But even adults also can change. You see, the Angumla, the story killed so many people, but yet in the end it became a sin. So nobody is really condemned. We just want to tell you that you can change. Right? So this is a very, very important example of social media. Today you find so many young and old are addicted already to the social media. Like very common example is the mobile phone, the handphone. They become so addicted, they even have to sleep with the mobile phones on with them. All right. And then if they lose the mobile phones, there are cases commit suicide also. Imagine. So addicted to a thing already. Of course, I also use mobile phones. Right? The mobile phone is useful if you use wisely where it's necessary. But most of the time, you find these young people, even small boys also now, have become addicted. It's a bad habit. A bad habit of being addicted to the social media using the mobile phone. Always must, wow, one day how many times they have to look at the TikTok, right? Or maybe chit chat in the Facebook, or watch all those entertainment things in the YouTube. I'm not saying those things are wrong. I'm just saying that you have become addicted and you have spent too much time already on the social media. I posted something, a presentation on the danger of this sort of things, right? And Einstein, accordingly to the story, right, predicted already the dangers of this high tech, I posted that very interesting presentation. Going for tours also, instead of, learning from the various sites, the buildings, the historical places, they'll be looking at the mobile phones also. And then going for holiday along the beach and so on, also just look at the mobile phone. And then when you go out for dinner, or where the person goes out for dinner with the family or the friends and so on, instead of carrying out a useful conversation in the physical human way, as those days, they will be just looking and playing with the mobile phone. So you find you have become a slave already, addicted to that. That is a bad habit we must avoid. Otherwise, you find there will be terrible consequences. You find the minds don't grow. They are usually, you think they are learning lessons from the mobile phone. Most of the time, you'll be looking at entertainment things only, and then aimless chit-chatting, playing games. Most of the time, we like this. Once a while, all right, you can control yourself, but the trouble is already, he's already addicted already, and he spends so much time on this at the expense of useful things. After we comment again when you see more cases. This is a very good example. So this was what was written after the story. Now let us go on to number 9 now. Then it can be other types of addition or other types of bad habits. For example, some have the bad habits of always eating junk food. Put in an animated image to understand. Now today you find so many young ones are already having this bad habit, right? Of always taking junk food. You can see all the gassy drinks lah, Coca-Cola lah, or maybe Pepsi. Once a while is okay, but they will take so often, the potato chips lah and all those unhealthy food. So if they don't do it, they find it so difficult already. That's why today you see so many children who are obese, very, very fat already. In China, the one-child policy, you find so many of the kids I see on now maybe they're taking steps. Why? Lack of exercise. They have the bad habit of not exercising. Not the bad. Exercising is a good habit, isn't it? You say, oh, I must exercise. That's a good habit. But it's not exercising. And then eating all the junk food. Right? So this is very unhealthy. And then getting up late in the morning. That is also a very common bad habit. You know what happens? They will sleep very late. 10, 12, 1 a.m. And then very often are caught up in the smartphones or chit-chatting, the Facebook or watching entertainment programs, or a lot of distracting things. So they cannot, sort of work out the proper timetable. So they sleep very late. Maybe 1 a.m., especially, secondary school students and the university students and the youth members. And then, of course, you wake up late. And some no time to take breakfast, so they have to skip and take what they call now brunch. Brunch will be maybe about 11. The time between the lunch and the breakfast now called brunch. All this never happened when we were students. And today, that's why you see the health status of so many young people has gone down. And then some have the habits of neglecting their education. Like you see these cases, this picture here. Instead of doing the homework and so on, they are playing the games with the computer. Or even now with the TV screen, you can actually have all those games, isn't it? Or in a computer monitor. And now, of course, you have Sony PlayStation, Game Boy. I don't know what you have now, what not you have. So they don't do the work that they're supposed to do. The assignments and projects they're supposed to be passing up in time. They ignore all those things. And then worse, some take up the bad habit of smoking. That this young boy. Primary school also, they learn this already. Smoking. And then gambling. Last time students told me in the school, I don't mention the school, even Form 1 or Standard 6 and 5, they gamble with books. They bet. And then, okay, now I bet. So now let's turn the page. You turn one page, I turn another page. So if it's page 37, 37, 10 points, then you turn, you turn what? You turn 47, page 47, you lose already. So gambling already at that stage, and you get into that habit, that terrible habit of gambling. Then later on, when you become adult, you major into terrible gamblers already. You have to go to casino, Genting casino, and then you hear of those terrible things that happen because of the bad habits now, right? Borrowing money from a long And then after that, could not pay back, have to run away, and the alarms disturb their families. All those things are because of bad habits from young. So we let the bad habits, sort of grow inside us, So gradually those habits become stronger each day, until they get ingrained in you. And today, so many adults have these bad habits also. Started the time when they were young. Like, for example, adults who have become chain smokers. They cannot give up the smoking because they have got into that habit of smoking from young. So they have become what we call addicted. And likewise also, you have the kaki bottle. People who, cannot live without drinking every day. Once a while, maybe I could understand. But anyway, for us, Buddhists, we refrain from drinking. For me, no problem at all. A very easy thing. But many people have become addicted. Not only just drinking on occasions, no. Every day must drink already, you see. So that's the danger of alcohol addiction. And worst thing is some have got into the habits of drugs, or taking drugs. And once you become addicted, already very susah. A lot of suffering, everything will come. So don't let the bad habits grow inside you, and gradually those habits become stronger day by day. And you think of the story of plucking out the plants and the tree, then you know how dangerous it can be if you don't start removing the habits when you are very young. The studies is dedicated to the primary school students, secondary students. But of course, all adults also can see this because adults also have the bad habits. I also had some bad habits, so I had to really make a conscious effort to change. So it can be done, right? So that is this number 9. Wow, now you're catching up. So now we go on to number 10 now. Just now, as I say, there will come a time when you can't change your bad habits, even though deep inside you know they are not good and can bring about lots of problems and suffering. As I said just now, it's so very deeply rooted already, and then they say, oh, I can't help myself really. Actually, you can still can, but it's very difficult. So that's why you find some have the terrible habits of committing a criminal act, like stealing is actually wrong, or telling lies and then cheating other people, right? Or breaking the third precept, molesting girls, and then raping even. All those things, they have got ingrained in them already. So very difficult to change, but can be done. And if you don't do that, you don't change, then you have a terrible price to pay. A time will come where you will get into real suffering. If you have broken the law, a criminal action, you'll be caught by the police, put into jail, and so on. And then if you have done unwholesome actions like lying and then causing other people to suffer, cheating, stealing, killing even, sexual misconduct, taking alcohol until drunk and then doing unwholesome things, then according to the Buddhist teachings or the Dhamma, this will have an effect in the next life. So after that, they can be reborn in suffering states. So you see, it's terrible when we don't make an attempt to get rid of the bad habits. So therefore, we need to have a very strong determination, dressing a strong will to throw away any bad habits before the bad habits conquer you. You find it so difficult, you're under the control of bad habits already. So when that happens and you do nothing about it, your future will not be bright, happy, and peaceful. And there will be lots of suffering. So I put this to remind you, break bad habits. Don't let bad habits spoil your future. First, I find this animation one. Maybe it's an interview for a job or whatever, or asking the young ones, do you have any bad habits? Many people will not admit. Okay, so now we are going to go on to the last slide, which is the most important slide, and we will spend some time discussing the Dhamma lessons. So there are 4 common bad habits. There are many, but I've just picked these 4 to have a discussion and to tell you how dangerous it is if we do not take steps to eradicate or to remove or to stop or to eradicate or cut off the bad habits, right? So common bad habits you must stop. There are many, actually, a whole long list, endless. So I've just taken out 4 and then put in some pictures for you to understand better. Now let us look at some of them I've said before just now already, but now we are going to reinforce with further discussion. So now let's look at the one with the picture of, this fat person in front of the TV. Unhealthy eating. Very, very common. Have you seen potato couches? Which means they will have all sorts of junk food, especially, for example, maybe you have certain events, live telecast on the football match, or maybe a concert and so on. Wow, they get all the junk food in front of them. Once a while, I suppose it is quite understandable, but it has become a habit and becomes more and more often already. That means unhealthy eating. That's why today you can see there are so many obese young ones. Obese means they are very, very fat. And some, of course, due to genetic reason and so on, can be helped. But very often, like in China, you find so many obese children. Why? Because they come from the one-child policy. The child is spoiled by the parents, and then the grandmothers and the grandfathers. Each child has 2 grandmothers, one father's side, one mother's side, and then 2 grandfathers. So altogether, 6 adults are protecting and loving the child to the extent they let the child develop all the bad habits. And one of it is unhealthy eating. So you can see the consequence, and later on you find they will have problems of the health now. That's why, even young fellas now die of heart attack. You see, 30, 40. One of the things is a lack of exercise. Lack of exercise is also a bad habit. Not exercising. I have no space to put so many. So you can see the dangers of this unhealthy eating. So you have to be very, very careful. I'm not saying you cannot eat at all. Once a while, maybe you like, some ice cream, or maybe, McDonald's, or once a while, it's quite understandable. You cannot be perfectly like a saint or whatever. But what I'm trying to say here is a bad habit already, very frequent, out of control already. Right? So I have read of cases that people have got into very dangerous sicknesses because of very unhealthy eating. The bad habit of always taking all those junk food, and then also the very, very dangerous types of drinks, alcohol inclusive. Okay, now let us look at the next one, right? This is a very common one. Procrastination, berlengah-lengah. That means to always postpone, keep on things, Like this picture shows it very well. They have so many assignments or so many tasks to do, right? They say, wait lah. So lots and lots get piled up. This applies not only to students, but also not only students in schools, but in universities, and then working adults, and family members, fathers, grandfathers, and so on. Apply to all. They have this bad habit of procrastination. Given a piece of work to do, a duty to perform, they say, okay, wait. Then later on, they forget. And this is what I experienced also with many of my former students, right? So sometimes I send them certain things, right? They are very nice people and so on, but because they have this habit of procrastination, they don't acknowledge, they don't reply, and so on. They say, later on. Then they forget about it already. It's terrible, isn't it? For me, I'm very concerned about this, and I make sure I don't do these sort of things. So whenever somebody needs help, they say, brother, can you please lend me or pass to me certain notes and so on, right? So I don't procrastinate and say okay, and then one day becomes 2 days, become 1 week, 2 weeks, and then after that 2 weeks only you remember, or worse still, you forget already. No, I won't procrastinate. I will carry out that task as soon as I can. Very often is, very, very fast. I will settle it already. I will send them the notes or whatever . So it's a very important thing. Procrastination is the thief of time, right? And then later on, you find they do last moment work. Last moment work, like for example, project they're supposed to do and gather the data. They say, no, mind wait, still a lot of time. So one day passes after another, and they become very stressed when the time comes. You have so limited time, they rush through the thing and then don't sleep, take black coffee and all those things because they are procrastinating. No wonder there is a proper procrastination is the thief of time, isn't it? And then you find if people know of you as one person who doesn't complete the work in time, always late in handing in assignments and so on, because of your procrastinating habit, then people will not have a good image of you. Whereas you're very prompt intending to things, in answering, acknowledging, messages directed to you, or even things given to you. You're very prompt in doing that. People have a very good image of you. Perhaps some, but sad to say, the number of young people having these good habits of not procrastinating is getting smaller. Most of the people who respond promptly and so on are mostly the people who had the education during the colonial times. A long time ago, we were taught, inculcated already the values inside. All right, now let us look at the other one I mentioned before also. It's a very, very serious thing. Social media. Just now I mentioned already, indulging in social media. And I put a very important message. Social media, silent killer of your mental health. And the psychiatrists and experts have said this already, right? That the research data show already that people who have become addicted to the social media, like, I think you have the symbols here, Facebook, Twitter, Quora, YouTube, Pinterest, and then share icon or things like that. Lots of things and then WeChat, and then even WhatsApp also, right? All sorts of things, they can be quite useful, no doubt. So technology is not technology, it's bad. But if you're using it not wisely, you have become addicted. So you sacrifice so many things. You hardly play games to exercise. You don't, try to read up important things or knowledge. And worse still, you not be interested to learn any Dhamma at all, which is the most important thing in life, because you are caught in this social media already. And the social media, mostly will be, involving entertainment. So I get lots of things through the WhatsApp. I usually delete, right? Watching all those fun things. Once a while is okay for relaxation, but this one become a habit already. And then to um, uh, post all the pictures of the food you have taken or the nice places. So all pertaining to your senses. And then aimless chit-chatting. And some will be addicted to gaming. Gambling also now can do online and so on. So in time to come, the psychiatrists have said, you will come to a state where your mind is affected. You feel that you're so stupid and so hopeless like that, like life has no meaning for you. And many sink into depression. Depression, because you are not using your mind in the proper way. So that is a very dangerous thing, isn't it? So if you want to have mental health, you must have a proper balance. Make sure you don't get caught in the trap of social media. It's not that you can't use a mobile phone or Facebook. I also use Facebook, YouTube, and so on, but I have to set the limits. There must be time, where for us, we do the Dhamma practice. I make sure that I follow the program that I've been following so many years, those good habits, like, I regularly must do the chanting every day, meditation for a certain period, and all those things, or exercise and so on. So you get into the system, a good habits you must always do, and then the bad habits too, cut and avoid. So I hope you understand the message. Now we come to the last one, which is very, very important. It involves very important Dhamma messages. And you find today, many people are conquered by bad habits of being greedy and craving for things only, as the picture here shows very clearly. Very, very greedy, takes a whole cake. His friend, the friend is very selfish, would not share at all. Today, you find in different ways, this is becoming very, very common. People only self-centered. Kaki kok kaki lah, cici ku cici lah. Menjaga diri sendiri only lah. Mementingkan diri sendiri only. Some even worse, they have the habit. You ask me to do something, no money, no talk. So that's our attitude. It's already a habit, already bad habit there already. And then they find they have the bad habit of being impatient. Like for example, on the roads, they have this bad habit, the thing in the mind, just not following the traffic rules, overtaking recklessly, beat the traffic lights, right? And then cursing away, all sorts of things, impatience, bad habit. And then also getting very angry, small thing also getting very angry. These are the bad habits. Many of the points are very important Dhamma points actually. So I pick out here, being greedy, selfish, impatient, and bad temper. So make sure we are not like that. Those are actually attitudes based on the habits also. It's connected with the habits, bad habits from young. You don't know, you acquire all these things from social media, from your friends and all these things. All these become habits already. Every time there is there are free things for offer, or you are very greedy and selfish, you will quickly go and grab as much as possible. In a function, you find so greedy and selfish and tapao before other people can eat also. All these are terrible habits. And then, of course, impatient. If you are impatient, you can soon be a patient in the hospital because you're not patient on the road. So you end up as a patient in the hospital. And then being angry easily, losing your temper. This I have posted quite a number of posts already on how to conquer the enemy of anger, enmity, hatred. All right, so these are the very important things you have to take note. So now I've spoken more than 1 hour on this very important topic. The story is short and simple, but the lessons are very, very important. So before we say sadhu 3 times, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the students and the young ones, youth members, and also all the parents and grandparents who are guiding the young ones in moral education and life lessons, and of course the teachers of Buddhist Sunday School and Dhamma classes. I say thank you and sadhu to all of you for taking time and also putting in your effort to follow this long presentation. I just hope that it will be beneficial to people, and also if you find it's useful, you can share it. That is a meritorious action. Share it with other people or your friends. So sadhu to all of you. So now let us fold our palms, fold our palms, and we are going to say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Boys and girls, students, and all those who are watching the presentation, may you all be well, happy, peaceful, and may we take steps to stop any bad habits that we have. Right? Thank you. Sadhu.